Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's Deepblocks webinar as we will explore Dallas, Texas, looking for development opportunities and going through site selection and feasibility analysis. Before we get started, it's going to give a few more minutes, let some more people jump in and join us today. I do appreciate you taking the time to participate and join Deepblocks for our weekly webinar, again, exploring Dallas, Texas. Before we get started, like you mentioned, I want to let some more people join us, but I'm going to go through a couple of key sections of our website and kind of go through a little overview of Deepblocks and everything that we entail here at Deepblocks. I'm going to share my screen. Again, if at any time you have any questions, feel free to use the chat and reach out with any questions you might have. Again, my name is Michael Cavone. I am the Chief Revenue Officer of Deepblocks, as I will be taking you through this week's webinar and again, discovering some potential opportunities in Dallas, Texas. If this is your first time joining us, Deepblocks does allow for you to converge various data sets from zoning data, parcel level data, market intelligence, and demographic information all into one centralized location. The software is broken into two different interfaces. We have our front end interface, which allows us to go through thousands and thousands of parcels and narrow down to just a handful of sites for site selection. And basically, you can apply map layers to that site selection to really understand the particular marketplace you're looking at. And upon selecting that particular property, you can then look at the information, the zoning information, and really get an understanding of what the development potential is of that particular site. You then can go into the second interface and do a preliminary underwriting and use our financial modeling and kind of our 3D modeling and do feasibility analysis and go through various scenarios of what is the most optimal development play on that particular site. You can do multifamily, you can do retail, office, you can do mixed use. Just a very powerful way of going through the process that in the past is very fragmented, very disparate in terms of bringing all this information together. Where at Deepblocks, we're streamlining all this information, bringing it to you, and again, one centralized location and on our software, which is a SaaS product. And really, it's a very intuitive product, allowing you to just navigate through this process very efficiently and effectively. We're seeing 90% of time saving with our product versus the way our customers were doing it prior to using the software. So extremely impactful. Here on my screen, you'll see that we have our website, deepblocks.com. There's various key sections on this particular site. We have our cities section, which shows the cities that we currently have zoning in, along with the cities where we have parcel level data. We're in 43 cities, but we're going to be adding another 57 cities throughout the third quarter into the fourth quarter. So we had 100 cities with zoning data. We're in 1,000 plus cities with parcel level data. And all our market intelligence and demographic data is represented throughout the entire country. So some really key integral pieces that are part of the real estate development process, all again here at your fingertips in one piece of software. Additionally, we have our webinar section, which we upload each and every week, the previous webinar. So if you miss a webinar, you can always go here to find the webinars from the previous weeks and see what we were discussing in the different cities that we represent and have zoning, as well as, again, parcel level data and functionalities throughout the country. Our tutorials, which are very resourceful sections, 60-second clips of really key functionalities and ways of navigating or using the software. A very, very helpful section in really guiding you through utilizing our software to the max. Lastly, we have our pricing. Currently, we're at $18,000 per year, which is our annual rate. You can do monthly for $2,000 a month, but we always recommend doing the yearly rate at $18,000, which is a discount off the monthly. It's a great time to get in. We're going to be increasing our prices by the end of the year because we can, as we add more and more cities and implement newer functionality. So that pricing will only go up. I believe we're going up to $27,000, possibly $36,000 in coming months. So you get in now at $18,000, you'll be grandfathered into that price as an early adopter, and you'll keep that pricing for the remainder of your life using the subscription. So with that being said, let's get ourselves started. Again, I do appreciate you joining us this weekend, and we're going to jump in, start our search in Dallas, Texas. So here you'll see this is my dashboard, and you'll see where all my previous projects have been saved. But we're going to go into the search engine and go into the first interface, or the front interface, which is our market scanner / search engine, where we can kind of go through our site selection process. But before we actually select the site, we can use different types of map tools that we have integrated into the system, allowing us to really get a good macro view or bird's eye view of a particular marketplace. And I'll show you and demonstrate how to kind of utilize some of these map layers to really get a good understanding of where there's high density for building, as well as high density area, kind of where the zoning and where everything is trending based on a particular city. And just a couple of key pieces of advice and recommendations I'd like to suggest as you use the software. One thing that we always recommend is using Google Chrome. And when you're on the screen, I like to always zoom out to about 80%. I'm using a 24-inch monitor. The reason I kind of zoom out to 80% allows me to capture as many parcels as possible on my viewport or on my screen. So you'll notice I'm kind of minimizing some of these panels, the market scanner panel, as well as the demographic trend panel. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to start to zoom out first. And again, I want to get that macro level view of Dallas, Texas, and really get a good understanding of where certain density is focused on, and basically where some of the zoning trends are occurring. Most likely the pockets of interest, as I like to phrase it, for where we're seeing good development go on in Dallas. So I'm going to zoom out quite a bit. The first layer that I'm going to turn on is the buildable area ratio. So again, this gives you a good idea of density, and the deep red just gives you an idea of high density ratio, where there is good pockets of interest in the city of Dallas. And again, we have this particular layer throughout all the cities that we have zoning in. And you'll notice this big cluster of deep red right here in the center of my screen, where I'm kind of circling with my mouse. So I'm kind of going to focus my attention on this particular area. And we're going to start to zoom in a bit and kind of really look into this area. But before I do so, I'm going to actually turn on another layer that I really like to use, is our opportunity zone. And kind of my main focus today for Dallas is that I'm looking for a multifamily development play. Looking for a site where we have an opportunity to build a multifamily use, possibly multifamily office use. So, but I'm leaning more to the multifamily side of things and kind of get an idea of the best site. And as I mentioned, we'll go into the second interface and go through the 3D modeling and what if scenarios, or like what I like to call the feasibility analysis, and truly figure out the most optimal play on the site that I select. So with this layer activated as the opportunity zone, which again, these are represented throughout the entire country. You'll notice in yellow here around the south side part of Dallas, the large opportunity zone. I'm going to put that buildable area ratio layer back on and kind of see where some of these deep red dots are appearing. And I'm kind of continue to focus in on that opportunity zone and where these red dots are, and look for opportunities and sites available based on what this data is showing me. So as I continue to zoom back in and really get a representation of this particular marketplace in Dallas, I want to also go to my demographic section, or my people section, and look at some of the demographic data. And we have these heat maps that represent employment data, median income, median rent, and population. This is all based on the census data. So median income is always a good measure of understanding a particular area. So as I mentioned, we were looking in this south side area, got an income of 79,000 up here, on that west end historic district, into the $70,000 range and down to about 69,000. So I'm kind of interested in the 69 to 70,000 solid range of median income. And we're going to continue to look in as we zoom in. And again, we're going to go for that macro level view of really getting a nice overview of what the area represents in Dallas based on, as I mentioned, income, opportunity zones, and buildable area ratio. And as we continue to zoom in and get more into that micro level, then we'll start to see some key trends in kind of analyze where is the best opportunity or best site that might meet my criteria. So Again, I'm going to stay kind of focused in the 70,000 to 69,000 range. And start to zoom in a little more. And you'll notice as I start to zoom in, our parcels will eventually reappear. And based on, you'll see the blue outlines show the parcels within my viewport. So now with that, the parcel is now active, we can now kind of go into our search and into the market scanner and go through and enter in certain criteria to help us analyze and again, find that proper site that I'm looking for based on my criteria to develop a multifamily play. Here are the various fields. You can search by zoning district, use allowed, but just to give you an idea of how many parcels are in this particular viewport, what we like to do is we just put 0 to 1.5 million, and you'll notice we have about 2,700, almost 2,800 parcels we're looking at right now in our viewport, which is a tremendous amount of parcels, and we'll show you how you can quickly go from almost 2,800 parcels down to just a handful very quickly based on our criteria. So some of the key things I'm going to be looking for today is, again, I'm looking for a site based on the use of multifamily, but I kind of want to look for certain types of units allowed for this particular development play. So I'm going to actually activate my units allowed. I'm going to be looking for something between 50 and 100 and see what any results come up. All right, so now you'll notice we're down to 149. I'm going to go back to this general map layer, kind of want to put on the opportunity zone and see again. All right, so this is perfect. So I'm kind of focused here in this yellow area. There's plenty of parcels matching. I'm going to continue to zoom in more and more and look at the different opportunities in this section of Dallas for developing multifamily plays. So to continue to scroll in, I'm also going to go back and we're going to turn on this buildable area ratio just to kind of get an idea of what the different, again, pockets of interest are or where the density is. As we continue to look for a particular site that really meets my criteria, we have one right here that looks pretty interesting. Right along, I believe that's Marilla Street, between Gadee Street and Marilla Street. That's catching my interest. We have a question. How does Deepblocks handle planned development zoning overlay or with a PD if a FAR is not clearly established in a static form with different asset classes with that zoning area? It's a very good question, very detailed question. I'm gonna have to let me kind of research a little bit further for you and kind of get back to you. I'll have to kind of ask my engineering team and some of my data team to really give you a better answer because I don't want to misrepresent, but we have everything is kind of, let's put it this way. If it's not clearly established, there's certain measurements that you can put in or you can adjust based on what you know of the area or what we provide in our guidelines. So as I go through the step-by-step process, we'll see if this kind of clarifies a little bit what you're looking for. But again, this is a very good question, something I can look a little bit deeper into for you and give you a little bit better answer. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to jot this down. All right. And look in Oaklawn and Lemon intersection, see what pops up, PD 193. Okay, let's see. Well, here's what I'm going to do is I will put on the zoning and you'll see PD right here. I was going to actually select the site right here in this PD range. And based on this particular parcel right here that I'm looking at, you'll notice that here's how it breaks it down in the FAR. It's going to be broken down based on single family, multifamily, office, retail, commercial, industrial. It gives you, again, we're trying to do is provide you the guidelines and the premise of how you can develop on this particular parcel. When we get into the feasibility analysis of preliminary underwriting, what we are capable of doing is we do an automatic generation and 3D model of the FAR and the use that is selected, which I'll show you in a few minutes. And then on the assumption side, you can adjust the assumptions based on what you're trying to develop, and you use this property info as a guide. And you kind of want to create your project based on the information, and again, use it as a reference point. So we'll kind of go through that and demonstrate how you can adjust and adapt it based on the information we are providing for the zoning. So these are very good questions. I just want to bring back up Oak Lawn and Lemon intersection. I'm not sure I'm really seeing where that is exactly. But if you don't mind, I'm going to go through this example and then I'll come back and look for the Oak Lawn and Lemon intersection. But let me just, again, jot that down because I really do appreciate the specific questions because it only helps me and our team learn more about the Dallas area. All right, so just to kind of go back to where I was explaining the market scanner, we have all these different parcels. We're down to basically about a handful. Now we're down, we went from 3,700 down to about 10 parcels. And I'm simply just kind of looking in this particular part of Dallas that's in an opportunity zone, units allowed between 50 and 100. And the other thing I like to always look at is these demographic trends. So we can basically identify and understand the trends in this particular area. Right now, it's the census data from 2010 through 2018. We're working on gathering the rest of the data through 2020, which once we get it all finalized, we will upload it. But the way these demographic trends work, you just put your mouse over the little box, and this is in census tract 204, so we'll turn this one off, and we'll see the solid incline in population for this particular parcel that's in the census tract. We can look at employment population. We can also look at median gross rent that's being charged. We'll turn it off 3101, and you'll see that there's a slight incline in median gross rent, especially against the United States average. And we can also look at median household income, look at that trend, turn off 3101. And as well, we see a nice strong incline in median household income. So this seems like a pretty solid area to look to develop in. And I'm going to select this parcel. And as I mentioned, here so did the property info, the zoning limitations for buildable area, FAR based on different uses, number of floors based on uses. Here's our units allowed, building height, again, based on specific uses, lot coverage, zoning district is PD. And it kind of goes into the unit density. And lastly, you get parking by uses. Just keep an understanding of these different pieces of information. And when I get into the preliminary underwriting and the second interface, I'll show you how I use all these different pieces of information to kind of start to model my building and develop my building. So, and here's our setbacks. So the next step is, sometimes I like to turn on the street view just to get an idea of what is in that particular area, just to make sure and confirm that this is a vacant spot. I'm going to turn it around. It's going to be right here in this corner. So here it is, this vacant land, which is even more affirmation. That's a good piece of property to potentially develop on for my multifamily play. The next step is now we're going to preliminary underwriting. And I'm going to just select multifamily for this particular example, but keep in mind you can select multiple uses. I can select multifamily with an office, industrial, or multifamily office and retail. But right now I'm just going to do multifamily, and you'll notice right here the FAR is automatically populated with 2. That's based on the FAR in the zoning information. But again, you could adjust this to what you see fit if it's supposed to adjust based on different uses. So I'm going to hit continue. It's going to now create and automatically populate the second interface with a 3D model. All the assumptions automatically will be updated with market rates and various pieces of information tied to this particular part of Dallas. But again, everything is flexible where we can adjust and enter in various assumptions based on what you're trying to develop and try to, again, the whole goal here is to optimize this particular site. One, to see if it makes sense to really put your resources into this particular project. And 2, is see what the best development play is on this particular site. And the way this kind of the whole concept of Deepblocks is really just to expedite the process of really kind of keeping up the speed of the market and bring these different scenarios to partners. And it's really a nice high-level litmus test saying, all right, this does make sense. Let's move forward this and bring this to the team. Because with Deepblocks, you can do various different things on the front end. After you go through, look at all the different sites, you can export those sites to the CSV file and share those sites with your team. Once you get to this interface and you have those sites selected, you can go through this feasibility analysis and export into a PDF report the most optimal development plays on these sites. So you can then compare notes and look at what makes sense for your business and how you should proceed. So one of the first things I always like to do when I get to this part of the process is I go back to that property info, which we were just previously looking at, kind of get a good idea of parking by use, which is right here. So it's 1 space per bedroom with a minimum of 1 space per unit, plus 0.25 space a unit for guest parking, if the required parking is restricted to resident parking only. We also have our setbacks, which you'll see broken down here. So just for this example, I'm going to kind of keep it a little bit on the simpler side, but I'm going to go into, and we're going to adjust our assumptions. We're going to add the parking in right away. So we're going to put in, I'm just going to put in 1 space for the parking, and you'll see why in a second. All right. And what you'll notice is the parking automatically comes up right underneath in gray. Underneath, and you'll see that's the parking. So the next thing I like to do is we're going to look at the units allowed was 52 for this particular site. So I go into the multifamily, and then we can now adjust the assumptions. Right now it's 36, we'll populate with 52. And you'll start to see the 3D model automatically updates as we all right. Thank you. I appreciate sharing the information, and I'll be sure to look into that. It's great that you provide this. Gentlemen's giving some more information based on what is missing, and I do appreciate that. And I will look into that a little bit further and go back to my team with this information. This is very helpful, and again, thank you very much for pointing this out. We're always looking to update our information and keep things as current as possible, or make sure if there's anything that is missing that we do include it. So we do appreciate it. I mean, as we scale out to all these various cities, sometimes we might miss something, and it's very helpful when our users or members from during the webinars point things out. And again, I do appreciate it. So here you'll see I have the 3D modeling going. We first like to adjust the parking, just to get an idea of the parking. Then I adjusted the units at 52. We're going to do a little bit of smaller unit at 750 square feet. And next thing we're going to do is kind of go into our setbacks and define the building and start to mold this based on, again, the setbacks information here in the property info. So just because I went through this before, we're going to adjust our setbacks accordingly. Now we can uniquely identify each side that we are working on in our setbacks. I'm going to zoom in. Cadiz Street is the primary street, so we're going to make that A. So you can see I can, again, uniquely identify these sides. We're going to leave Park Avenue as B. Over here is going to be C. And then the rear is going to be D. And the reason I'm doing that is now I can adjust each side uniquely or specifically, but based on the setbacks in the property info, ground floor has got to be at least 20 feet. And there are certain restrictions based on that information, but I'm just going to put 20 feet in. You'll notice the lot coverage for this particular site is, I believe it's 60% for multifamily. We're just doing multifamily. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see what's going on with this 3D model. And you'll see again the parking here in the gray as those setbacks kind of kick in. All right. I'm actually going to bump the parking up to 1.5 because I want to include that guest parking. And you'll see what will happen is now the parking goes to basically 2 stories. Kind of the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to adjust my assumptions and kind of mold this building to kind of be a little bit of a tower. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into my setbacks. We're going to adjust the setbacks from the 3rd story and up. And we're going to go to 30 feet here. You'll see the reason I'm doing that is it kind of makes a little bit of a tower. And gives you a nice little building shape here on this corner property. And again, we can go back to our assumptions and kind of start working this a little bit more. Right now we have 52 units. We're looking at about 750 square feet. I'm going to drop this down to about 1,500 square feet of amenities. And you'll see again, the building will take shape. So it's looking like a pretty good building. We got a nice little like foundation with the garage space. We're at 6.09% in terms of ROC. So you'll notice if anything you adjust on the assumption side, everything automatically updates in your KPIs. You also notice it in your return analysis. Here's your back of the envelope 1-year return on cost, financial breakdown. And then we also include a detailed breakdown of all the assumptions. Again, as you update this, it's very interactive. This automatically will compute and change the numbers. So right now we're in an FAR with parking at 2, without parking at 2.01. The FAR was at 2. So there's just little things you can start to adjust. We can make this 745. I believe that brings it down to 1.99. As I mentioned, the building height based on the property info for multifamily was, let's see, number of floors had to be, there's no max, so that's good. But there's a building height of 90 feet. We can go back here and check. We're at 84.1 feet. So right, everything's falling right within the guidelines. That's kind of how this is all structured. Just to keep in mind where Deepblocks is heading, our goal is to get to a predictive analytic phase where we take our artificial intelligence, all our market data, all the data that we pump in from zoning, and kind of use predictive analytics to really give you an understanding of the trends and where the market is heading, so you can stay ahead of the market on the site selection process. The back end we want to use and kind of use this, our machine learning and again the artificial intelligence to present to you the most optimal development solution or play on a particular site. So that's the direction we're heading. At the moment, we advance the whole process and expedite your process by allowing you to go through various sites very quickly. Again, I mean, it's what takes weeks, sometimes months. You're doing it in a matter of minutes now by going through all these sites, selecting a site, and then again, you go through this interface, our Explorer interface, and use the 3D modeling, financial analysis, and do a feasibility study, and really, again, kind of go through various what-if scenarios. You'll notice we have shared project. You can share with your colleagues who have user licenses, or within your own account, you can copy a project and go through different scenarios. So we can kind of go through this scenario first, multifamily, and then you can kind of copy and go through and quickly add. And just to show you how easy it is, if we copy this project, we want to add office. We can just click office, and all of a sudden, office shows up. We want to add some retail shows up. And then once you add a particular layer, you can go to your assumptions and start adjusting these assumptions for now multifamily and retail to, again, optimize this site and produce the most productive development play based on these different uses. But for my example, I'm just kind of focusing on multifamily. Just wanted to kind of quickly demonstrate that you can use and quickly add different uses or go through different scenarios very quickly using Deepblocks. So as I mentioned, we kind of first identify the parking, our units allowed, enter that into the assumptions, then we go into the setbacks, kind of begin to mold the building in a 3D model to the way we want to potentially see what it could look like and see how it fit based on the property info. And lastly, again, I like to go through the assumptions one last time and start adjusting accordingly to see if I can increase this ROC as best as possible. So on the income side, again, we are pre-populated with sub-market rates. Right now, this is showing $29,285 per month for a 2-bedroom. Maybe that's a little bit on the higher side, so we can say maybe $27.50 because it's a little bit of a smaller apartment. So our ROC will drop a bit. But we can go on the project cost side. Maybe we can work on purchase price, and maybe we're a good chance. Maybe we get this for 2.57 instead of $3 million, and now ROC jumps up to 592. Maybe the soft cost will be 12%. Get that a little bit higher. And again, maybe the hard cost right now we're showing $214 a square foot. Maybe we can just get it down to $199, and maybe parking maybe $55 a square foot. So you can see just by adjusting these different assumptions, our ROC starts to increase. Excuse me. So we'd like to just give you that flexibility to enter in the assumptions based on your project, what you know about the particular area, and try to maximize the development play in this particular site. So, and lastly, kind of as you finish going through all the assumptions, you can now go to our PDF report. You can enter who it's from, who it's going to, write a little summary about it. You can choose a cover image for this particular property, upload your company logo and your company colors, and then you can export this PDF report out. And the reason this is so helpful is that you can, again, go through this iteration. Like I mentioned, you can copy the project, go through another iteration, maybe with office or retail, and just kind of compare notes saying, listen, here's the particular site that we're looking at. Here's what I'm envisioning. Here's a little summary about it. kind of gives you the property info, the zoning summary, and a stacking plan. Gives you the key demographic trends for this particular area, and lastly, the financial analysis, that 1 year back in the envelope return on cost, all broken down for you. And you now share this and other iterations of this particular site or whatever other site you're looking at, development plans you're possibly looking at. And the whole concept is to really go through this in a very efficient and effective way and just save time. And saving time saves money. We're seeing that workforce multiple increase productivity tremendously. So overall, it's a win-win for both sides of the Deepblocks and our customers. So again, we do appreciate you joining this week, and as we explore Dallas, Texas. I do appreciate those questions. I'm going to be sure to take down your name and get back to you. So we appreciate the input that you mentioned. This is very helpful, and like I said, I like to bring this to my team and make sure they are aware of this information. And again, I will be sure to get back to you with a a specific answer for your original question. I will look at that Oak Lawn Lemon intersection as well. But again, thank you again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you guys join us next week, and have a great afternoon. Take care.